My neighbor knocked at 5 a.m. Don't go to work today. Just trust me. I asked why. He looked terrified and said, You'll understand by new Omicron new. At 11:45, I got a call from police. Look, I'm not saying I'm a heavy sleeper, but I once napped through a car alarm that went off for 45 minutes straight right outside my bedroom window. So when something wakes me up at 5 in the freaking morning, it better be important. Like, end of the world important. Zombie apocalypse important. At the very least, Publishers Clearinghouse with one of those giant checks important. This was not that. What this was, apparently, was someone trying to break down my front door with what sounded like a battering ram operated by someone who had a personal vendetta against Wood. The pounding was so aggressive, so insistent, so completely devoid of any regard for human decency or the concept of sleep, that I genuinely thought for a second that the FBI had finally traced that questionable tax deduction from 2019 back to me. I was having the best dream too. Pancakes. Stacks of them. The really fluffy kind that practically melt in your mouth, drowning in maple syrup that probably cost more than my car payment, with little pats of butter sliding down the sides like they were auditioning for a Food Network special. I could practically taste them. And then this Neanderthal with anger management issues decided that whatever they wanted was more important than my imaginary breakfast. Half asleep, half ready to commit a felony, I rolled out of bed like a sack of potatoes that had given up on life. My eyes were still crusted shut. My hair was doing that thing where it defies gravity and points in 17 different directions, and I'm pretty sure I had drool crusted on my cheek. Attractive, I know. My wife Tara always says I look like a confused baby giraffe when I first wake up, and honestly, she's not wrong. I grabbed the first thing I could find, an old hoodie that I'm 90% sure had a coffee stain from last Tuesday, and shuffled toward the front door like a zombie extra who didn't get enough coffee before the shoot. The whole way there, I'm muttering under my breath about noise ordinances and basic human decency and whether it's actually illegal to punch someone who wakes you up before the sun has even considered making an appearance. This better be good. I growled to absolutely no one, because talking to yourself at 5 in the morning is completely normal and definitely not a sign that you're losing it. Someone better be bleeding. Someone better be on fire. Someone better be bleeding and on fire, or so help me. I yanked open the door with the kind of aggressive energy that comes from being forcibly ripped from a pancake-based paradise, fully prepared to unleash the kind of verbal assault that would make a sailor blush. But the words died in my throat faster than my motivation on a Monday morning. Standing on my porch, looking like he'd just witnessed the actual apocalypse, or at the very least a really disturbing episode of Black Mirror, was Owen Cross. Owen freaking Cross. My neighbor. The guy who lives 3 houses down in the brick colonial with the bushes that are always trimmed into perfect geometric shapes. The guy who mows his lawn with the kind of military precision that makes you wonder if he's secretly measuring the grass height with a ruler. The guy who, in the entire year we've been neighbors, has said approximately 12 words to me, and 10 of those were morning repeated at various intervals. Owen was not a talker. Owen was not a friendly drop-by for coffee kind of neighbor. Owen was the guy who gave you a curt nod when you waved, returned your mis-delivered packages without making eye contact, and disappeared into his house like he was entering a witness protection program every single evening at exactly 6:30. And now here he was, at my door, at 5 in the morning, looking like he'd just stared into the abyss and the abyss had stared back with some really disturbing news. His face was pale, like vampire who forgot his sunscreen pale. His eyes had this wild, haunted quality that you usually only see in horror movies right before someone gets possessed or murdered or both. His hair, normally combed with the same precision he applied to his lawn care, was sticking up at odd angles. And his hands were actually shaking. Owen Cross, the human embodiment of suburban normalcy and routine, was shaking. Owen, I managed, my voice still rough with sleep and confusion. What the hell, man? Do you have any idea what time it is? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he just stared at me with those unsettling eyes, like he was trying to memorize my face or determine whether I was real or some kind of elaborate hologram. The silence stretched out for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only about 5 seconds. 5 very uncomfortable seconds. Then he spoke, and his voice had this quality to it, this deadly serious, zero room for jokes quality. that made every sarcastic comment I'd been preparing evaporate like morning dew in the Sahara. "Don't go to work today," he said, flat and emotionless, like he was reading from a script written by someone who'd forgotten how human beings actually communicate. "Just trust me." I blinked. Then I blinked again, because surely I'd heard him wrong. Surely my sleep-deprived brain had somehow scrambled his words into something that made absolutely no sense. But no, there he was, still staring at me with those crazy eyes, waiting for some kind of response. "I'm sorry, what?" I said, because that's what you say when your weird neighbor shows up at dawn and tells you to skip work with all the gravitas of someone delivering a cancer diagnosis. "Don't go to work today," he repeated, not elaborating, not explaining, just standing there like a malfunctioning robot that had gotten stuck on a single command. "Just trust me." Now, look, I'm not an idiot. When a grown man you barely know, mind you, shows up at your house before sunrise and tells you not to go to work with the kind of intensity usually reserved for bomb threats and intervention speeches, you have exactly two reasonable options. Option 1. Call 911 and report a possible mental health crisis. Option 2. Call an exorcist because your neighbor has clearly been possessed by something that feeds on lawn care and pre-dawn anxiety. But here's the thing, and I can't entirely explain this, which bothers me more than I'd like to admit. Something in his face made me stop, made me actually consider that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't having a psychotic break. Maybe he actually knew something, something important, something that warranted this absolutely bonkers early morning visit. "Why?" I asked, and I was genuinely proud of myself for managing to form a complete, coherent question despite my brain still being approximately 40% asleep. Owen's jaw tightened. His eyes darted past me, scanning my hallway like he expected someone to be lurking behind my coat rack. Then he looked back at me, and I swear to God, I've never seen anyone look more serious in my entire life. "You'll understand by noon," he said simply. Just that. Nothing more. Like that explained literally anything. And then, and this is the part that really sent my brain into overdrive, he just turned around and walked away. No goodbye, no further explanation, no, "Hey, sorry for the cryptic warning that sounds like dialogue from a bad thriller." He just walked down my porch steps, across my lawn, and back toward his house with this purposeful stride, like he was Batman heading back to the Batcave, except without the cape and with significantly less cool factor. I stood there in my doorway, barefoot on the cold tile, coffee-deprived and deeply confused, watching my mysterious neighbor disappear into the pre-dawn darkness. My toes were freezing. My brain was trying to process what had just happened and failing spectacularly. And I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just been cast in some kind of twisted reality show without anyone bothering to tell me. "What the actual hell?" I muttered to myself, finally closing the door and leaning against it like it might somehow provide answers or at least emotional support. Either Owen Cross had finally snapped after years of obsessive lawn maintenance and repressed suburban anxiety, or I was about to become a featured player in one of those true crime documentaries that people binge-watch at 2 in the morning while eating ice cream straight from the container. Neither option seemed particularly appealing, but I had a sinking feeling in my gut. That weird, instinctive feeling you get right before everything goes sideways. That told me today was about to get really, really interesting. And not the good kind of interesting. The kind of interesting that ends with police tape and investigative journalists camping out on your lawn. I shuffled back toward my bedroom, my mind racing despite my body's insistence that it was still sleep time. The pancakes in my dream were long gone now, replaced by a nagging sense of unease that settled in my chest like a weight I couldn't quite shake off. "Don't go to work today. Just trust me. You'll understand by noon." Yeah, I had a feeling noon was going to suck. By the time I stumbled back into the bedroom, Tara was sitting up against the headboard, squinting at me with that particular brand of suspicion that only wives who've been married long enough to know when something's off can master. Her hair was pulled back in one of those messy buns that somehow looked effortlessly cute on her, but made me look like I'd stuck my finger in an electrical socket. And she was wearing my old college t-shirt that she'd basically claimed as her own 3 years ago. "Who was at the door?" she asked, her voice still rough with sleep, but alert enough to indicate that she'd been awake for at least part of Owen's cryptic little visit. I sat down on the edge of the bed, running my hands through my disaster of hair, trying to figure out how to explain what had just happened without sounding like I'd completely lost my mind. Owen, I said finally. She blinked. Owen. 3 houses down Owen. Lawn-obsessed Owen, who we're pretty sure might be a robot programmed to edge sidewalks. That's the one. What did he want at? She glanced at her phone on the nightstand. 5:17 in the morning. Did his grass grow a millimeter too long, and he needed to file a neighborhood complaint? Despite everything, I almost smiled. Tara had a way of making everything sound ridiculous, which was usually one of my favorite things about her. Right now, though, it just made the whole situation feel even more surreal. He told me not to go to work today, I said, watching her face carefully for her reaction. She stared at me for a solid 5 seconds, then laughed. That sharp, disbelieving laugh that meant she thought I was either joking or had finally cracked under the pressure of our mortgage payments. Wait, seriously? That's it? He just showed up and said don't go to work? Pretty much, yeah. Did he elaborate? Give you a reason? Warn you about a gas leak or a bomb threat or, I don't know, a plague of locusts? Nope. Just said I'd understand by noon and then walked away like he was auditioning for a Christopher Nolan movie. Tara pulled her knees up to her chest, looking genuinely amused now. Okay, so Owen has officially lost it. I mean, we joked about it, but I think it actually happened. Maybe he finally snapped. Didn't you say he grows tomatoes in his backyard with the kind of intensity that makes you wonder if he's hiding bodies under them? It was a fair point. Owen's tomato garden was legendary on our street. Not because it was particularly beautiful, but because he treated those plants like they were his children. He had a whole irrigation system set up, labeled stakes for each variety, and I'm pretty sure I once saw him out there at midnight with a flashlight checking for aphids. Yeah, I admitted. But Tara, you didn't see his face. He looked genuinely freaked out. Like, I just witnessed a murder freaked out. Not my tomatoes have blight freaked out. She tilted her head, studying me with those sharp brown eyes that never missed anything. You're actually considering listening to him, aren't you? Was I? The logical part of my brain, the part that paid bills and showed up to work on time and generally tried to function like a responsible adult, was screaming that this was insane. Owen was clearly having some kind of episode, and the smart thing to do would be to ignore his cryptic warning, go to work like normal, and maybe anonymously tip off his wife that he might need to talk to someone. But there was this other part of me, this annoying little voice in the back of my head, that kept replaying the look on his face. The shaking hands. The deadly serious tone. Something about it felt genuinely wrong, like when you smell smoke but can't see the fire yet. I don't know, I said honestly. Probably not. I mean, it's insane, right? But you're going to stay home anyway. She finished for me, knowing me way too well. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand and pulled up my work email, my thumbs hovering over the keyboard. What was I supposed to say? Sorry, can't make it in today because my neighbor who I barely know had a prophetic vision at dawn. That would go over great with my boss, who already thought I used too many sick days. Finally, I typed out, family emergency. Won't be in today. We'll keep you posted. Vague enough to be believable, specific enough to not raise too many questions. I hit send before I could overthink it. Tara watched me with a mix of amusement and concern. Well, if you're staying home because of our weird neighbor's apocalyptic warning, I'm going to need you to at least be productive. The garage still needs cleaning. If the world ends by noon, I'm not spending my last hours organizing paint cans. I muttered, heading downstairs to make coffee, because if I was going to sit around waiting for whatever doom Owen had predicted, I was at least going to be caffeinated while doing it. The next few hours passed with excruciating slowness. I made coffee, a whole pot, because anxiety is better with espresso shots. I scrolled through news websites looking for what exactly? Warnings about terrorist attacks? Natural disasters? Alien invasions? Everything looked depressingly normal. Political scandals, celebrity gossip, someone's cat that could supposedly predict earthquakes. Tara left for work around 7:30, kissing me on the forehead and saying, "Try not to build a doomsday bunker while I'm gone, okay?" She thought the whole thing was hilarious, which was fair. From the outside, it absolutely was. But sitting there in my living room, watching the clock tick toward noon with all the suspense of a really boring thriller movie, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was legitimately wrong. I texted a couple of coworkers around 9, casual check-ins disguised as work questions. Everyone responded normally. No emergency meetings, No evacuations, no chaos. Just another boring Thursday at the office. By 10:30, I was starting to feel legitimately stupid. I'd blown off work, used a precious sick day, and for what? Because my antisocial neighbor had a weird morning? I was contemplating just driving in and claiming my family emergency had resolved itself when my coffee maker made this horrible wheezing sound, like an asthmatic robot having a panic attack, and died mid-brew. Perfect. Even my appliances were judging my life choices. I was standing there, mourning my coffee maker and questioning every decision I'd made since waking up, when my phone rang at exactly 11:45 a.m. Unknown number. For some reason, my stomach dropped. Just completely bottomed out like I was on a roller coaster that had suddenly decided to go off the rails. I stared at the screen for 2 rings, 3 rings, some primal part of my brain screaming at me not to answer. But I did anyway, because apparently I'm an idiot. Hello, Mr. Reed? Marcus Reed. The voice was female, professional, with that particular tone that people in authority use when they're about to ruin your day. Yeah, that's me. Who's this? This is Detective Sarah Holt with the Metro Police Department. Are you aware of an incident at your workplace this morning? The room tilted slightly. Or maybe that was just me. What incident? There was a pause, the kind of pause that's never followed by good news. Mr. Reed, there was a violent attack at your office building approximately 3 hours ago. Multiple casualties. We have security footage showing your vehicle entering the parking garage at 8:03 a.m., and your keycard was used to access the 7th floor at 8:17 a.m. I almost dropped the phone. I'm sorry, what? Detective, I don't know what your footage shows, but I've been home all morning. I called in sick. I haven't been anywhere near the office. Another pause, longer this time. I could hear paper rustling, keyboards clicking. Mr. Reed, I need you to stay calm. Can anyone verify your whereabouts this morning? I looked around my empty house, the coffee-stained counters, the dying coffee maker, the absolute absence of any other human being. My wife left for work at 7:30. But detective, I swear, unless my soul decided to commute without telling my body, I've been sitting here eating cereal and contemplating my life choices all morning. Mr. Reed, seriously, my coffee maker can vouch for me. It just died. We've been through a lot together this morning. Silence. Dead, heavy silence that told me my attempt at humor had landed with all the grace of a drunk elephant. Mr. Reed, I'm going to need you to come down to the station to answer some questions. My hands were shaking now. Actually shaking, just like Owen's had been. Am I a suspect? Let's just say we need to clear some things up. Can you come in voluntarily? Or do we need to send officers to bring you in? This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I'd stayed home because of a weird neighbor warning, and now somehow I was being implicated in an attack I knew nothing about. I'll come in. I managed, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. Good. I'll text you the address. Don't leave town, Mr. Reed. She hung up, and I stood there holding my phone, staring at nothing, my brain trying to process what had just happened and failing spectacularly. Don't go to work today. You'll understand by noon. It was 11:47 a.m. Owen had known. Somehow, impossibly, he had known. I spent the next 13 minutes pacing my living room like a caged animal who'd just discovered the cage was actually a trap, and the trap was actually my entire life imploding in real time. My mind was racing faster than a conspiracy theorist on Reddit, trying to connect dots that didn't seem to exist or existed in some dimension where logic had taken a permanent vacation. Someone had used my car. Someone had used my keycard. Someone who apparently looked enough like me to get past security had walked into my office building. And what? What had they done? Detective Holt had said violent attack and multiple casualties, which were words that should never be associated with a boring financial consulting firm where the most exciting thing that usually happened was someone microwaving fish in the break room. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up news websites with hands that wouldn't stop. Take the envelope. The wax seal broke easily under my thumb. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded once, and the handwriting on it made my breath catch in my throat. It was my dad's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. That slightly cramped script, the way he always made his capital M's with that extra flourish, the pen pressure that was always just a little too heavy because he pushed down when he wrote. Marcus, it read, if you're reading this, the world knows too much. Trust Owen. Do not speak to the authorities. You're not in danger because of what you did, but because of who you are. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything. I'm sorry for a lot of things. But know this, everything I did was to protect you. Now it's your turn to protect yourself. The truth is in the place where we said goodbye. Owen knows the way. Love, Dad. I read it 3 times. Then a fourth, because apparently my brain needed extra confirmation that yes, this was actually happening. Yes, my dead father had left me a cryptic letter like he was Obi-Wan Kenobi leaving instructions from beyond the grave. And yes, my entire understanding of my family history was apparently a lie. What does this mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What is he talking about? Owen moved to the window, peering through the blinds at the street. Your father wasn't an accountant, Marcus. I mean, he was, but that was just his cover. He worked undercover for a federal biosecurity task force. He was investigating a genetics project called the Origin Program. I laughed. I actually laughed, because what else was there to do? Right? Okay, cool. So my dad was secretly a spy investigating some evil genetics program. What's next, Owen? Are you going to tell me I have superpowers? That I'm the chosen one? Should I be expecting a letter from Hogwarts? This isn't a joke, Owen said, and something in his tone cut through my hysteria. The Origin Program was real. They were trying to engineer people who were immune to biological warfare. Designer humans who could survive attacks that would kill everyone else. Your father discovered they were using existing family DNA without consent. Specifically, they were using yours. The room tilted again, harder this time. Mine. You were flagged when you were born. Anomalous immune system, abnormal cellular regeneration, resistance to certain pathogens that should have made you sick. Your father spent 20 years trying to bury those records, trying to keep you off their radar. When he finally refused to cooperate anymore, they handled it. Handled it, I repeated numbly. You mean, your father's stroke wasn't natural, Marcus. It was induced. Quietly, professionally, in a way that no one would question. Heart attack, stroke, aneurysm. They have ways of making it look natural. I sat down heavily on my couch, the letter crumpling slightly in my grip. This is insane. This is actually insane. You're telling me my father was murdered because he wouldn't let some shadow government turn me into a science experiment? Yes. And now they framed me for an attack at my office because you're a loose end. Everyone who had files about the Origin Program was supposed to be in that building this morning. The attack was meant to look like a lone gunman, but it was actually an elimination operation. You were supposed to die there, Marcus. The only reason you didn't is because your father warned me this might happen, made me promise to keep an eye on you, and to get you out if anything went sideways. I looked up at him, this neighbor I barely knew, who was apparently my dead father's secret confidant and my only ally in whatever nightmare I'd just been dragged into. Why should I trust you? How do I know you're not part of this? How do I know you didn't? Outside, the sound of engines cut me off. Heavy engines, multiple vehicles, moving slowly down the street. Owen's face went tight, because if I was part of it, you'd already be dead. Now, we can either sit here and debate philosophy while they surround the house, or you can grab whatever you absolutely need in the next 60 seconds and come with me. Your choice. Through the window, I could see them now. Black SUVs, 3 of them, rolling down my quiet suburban street like sharks circling prey. They were still a few houses away, but they were definitely coming here. Okay, I heard myself say, my body moving on autopilot while my brain tried to catch up. Okay, what do I need? Wallet, phone, charger. Nothing else. And Marcus. Owen was already moving toward my back door. Whatever you do, don't answer when they knock. Because unlike me this morning, they won't be coming to warn you. I grabbed my backpack from the hall closet, shoving in my wallet, phone charger, and a granola bar that had probably been in there since last summer. Through the front window, the SUVs were pulling up to my curb now, doors opening, men in suits emerging with the kind of purposeful movement that meant business. Let's go, Owen said, and I followed him out the back door of my house, leaving behind my coffee-stained counters, my dead coffee maker, and apparently my entire life as I knew it. As we cut through my backyard toward the alley where Owen had apparently stashed a car, I could hear the front door being knocked on. Loud, official, not at all polite. Marcus Reed. This is Federal Agent Morrison. We need to speak with you. Yeah, I bet they did. Owen's car, because of course he had a car stashed in the alley like he'd been planning this for months. was a nondescript gray sedan that looked like every other forgettable vehicle you'd pass on the highway without a second glance. Which was probably the point. This wasn't his suburban dad SUV with the "My kid is an honor student" bumper sticker. This was a car that screamed, "Please forget you ever saw me." I threw myself into the passenger seat, my heart hammering so hard I was pretty sure it was trying to escape through my ribcage and find a less chaotic life somewhere else. Through the rear window, I could see my house, my actual house, with my actual mortgage and my actual belongings, now crawling with men in suits who definitely weren't there to discuss my refinancing options. "Buckle up," Owen said, and then he pulled out of that alley like he was auditioning for Fast and Furious, Suburban Dad Edition. We took a corner so sharp I'm pretty sure we left tire marks, and suddenly we were speeding through residential streets at speeds that would definitely earn us a ticket if there were any cops around who weren't currently surrounding my house. "Okay," I said, gripping the door handle like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. "Okay, I need you to explain. Right now? No more cryptic bullshit, no more mysterious letters. I need the full story, Owen, because I just abandoned my house. I'm apparently wanted for terrorism or murder or whatever the hell happened at my office, and according to you, my father was secretly James Bond. So talk." Now, Owen's eyes never left the road, but his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Your father came to see me about a year before he died. Just showed up at my door one night, said he knew who I used to work for, and that he needed someone to watch over you if anything happened to him." "Who you used to work for?" I repeated. "And who was that exactly? The CIA? MI6? The Illuminati? Defense Intelligence Agency? I was an analyst for 12 years before I retired." I barked out a laugh that sounded slightly unhinged even to my own ears. "Of course you were. Why not? Everyone on my street is apparently living a double life. Is Mrs. Henderson from number 42 secretly an assassin? Is the mailman actually undercover for Homeland Security? This isn't a joke, Marcus." "Oh, I'm aware it's not a joke, Owen. Jokes are funny. This is the opposite of funny. This is a nightmare that I can't wake up from. And I'm starting to think that maybe I'm actually in a coma somewhere, and this is all some elaborate brain fever dream." He took another sharp turn, and I swear I felt the car tilt on two wheels for a second. "Your father told me about the Origin program. He'd been investigating it for years, trying to understand what they were really doing. On paper, it was a federal initiative to develop countermeasures for biological weapons. Vaccines, treatments, that kind of thing. Noble goals, proper funding, all very official. But buried deep in the program was a project called Genesis Protocol. They weren't just developing countermeasures. They were trying to create people who wouldn't need them. People whose immune systems were so advanced, so evolutionarily superior, that they could survive any biological attack. Designer humans, Marcus. Super soldiers without the super serum." I stared at him. "That's insane. That's literally a comic book plot. It's also extremely illegal, a massive violation of about 17 international treaties, and exactly the kind of thing that governments do when they're scared enough." He glanced in the rearview mirror, checking for tails. They started with voluntary subjects, recruits who were told they'd be helping their country. But the results were inconsistent. Most candidates showed minimal improvement. Some got sick. A few died. My stomach turned. Jesus. Then someone had a different idea. Instead of trying to create immunity from scratch, why not find people who already had it? People with naturally occurring genetic advantages. So they started looking, screening blood samples, running tests, building a database of genetic anomalies. And they found you. The car swerved around a slower vehicle, and I barely noticed. "Found me how? You were 6 months old. Routine blood work at your pediatrician's office. The sample got flagged in their system. Abnormal white blood cell activity, enhanced antibody production, cellular regeneration rates that were off the charts for an infant. Someone decided you were worth studying." I felt cold. Actually cold, like someone had dumped ice water directly into my veins. "They tested me? When I was a baby? They tried to. Your father found out about it. I don't know how. He never said, and he shut it down. Hard. Used every connection he had, called in every favor, made enough noise that they backed off. Officially, at least. But they kept watching, kept tracking you. Every time you got sick, or more accurately, every time you didn't get sick when you should have, they noticed." I thought back to my childhood, trying to remember being sick, really sick. And the truth was, I couldn't. Sure, I'd had the occasional cold, the sniffles, maybe a stomach bug here and there. But nothing serious. Nothing that ever required more than a day or two of rest. I'd always just figured I had a good immune system, good genes, whatever. Your father spent 20 years keeping you off their radar. Owen continued, his voice tight. He buried test results, lost paperwork, redirected inquiries. He made you invisible. And it worked, mostly. Until about 2 years ago, when the program got new leadership. Someone more aggressive. Someone who went back through old files and started asking questions about cases that had gone cold. Your name came up again. And that's when they killed him, I said quietly. Owen's jaw clenched. They gave him an ultimatum. Cooperate. Help them bring you in for voluntary testing or face consequences. Your father told them to go to hell. 3 weeks later, he had a stroke in his driveway. Massive cerebral hemorrhage, completely untreatable, dead within hours. I remembered that day. The phone call from my mom, her voice breaking. The drive to the hospital, too fast and too slow at the same time. Seeing him in that bed, pale and still, already gone. The doctors saying it was quick, he didn't suffer. Sometimes these things just happen. Except it didn't just happen. Someone made it happen. Why didn't he tell me? The words came out strangled. Why didn't he warn me? Prepare me, something? Because he was trying to protect you. If you didn't know, you couldn't accidentally reveal anything. You could just live your life, be normal, stay invisible. He thought, he hoped, that if he was gone, they'd let it go. That you weren't worth the trouble without him as leverage. But they didn't let it go. No, they didn't. And I think, Owen paused, checking the mirrors again. I think something changed. Something accelerated their timeline. Maybe they're under pressure to show results. Maybe there's a threat we don't know about. Whatever the reason, they decided you were worth the risk of exposure. My phone started buzzing in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. 17 missed calls. Unknown numbers, mostly, but also my boss, 2 coworkers, and my stomach lurched. 6 calls from Tara. Don't answer that, Owen said sharply. That's my wife. I know. Don't answer it. They're monitoring your phone, Marcus. Everything you say can and will be used to track you. But she'll think. She'll be worried. She'll be fine. Better worried than involved. Trust me on this. I stared at Tara's name on my screen, watching it ring once more before going to voicemail. This morning we'd joked about Owen's tomatoes. She'd kissed my forehead and told me not to build a doomsday bunker. That felt like a lifetime ago. Where are we going? I asked, shoving my phone back in my pocket without answering. Somewhere safe. Somewhere your father set up as insurance. He set up a safe house? My father, my accountant father, set up a safe house. Owen almost smiled. Your father was a lot of things, Marcus. An accountant was just one of them. He was also paranoid, thorough, and smart enough to know that one day, someone might come looking for you. So he prepared. We'd left the suburbs behind now, heading toward the industrial part of town where warehouses squatted like sleeping giants and the streets were lined with chain-link fences instead of white picket ones. Owen navigated through the maze of buildings with the confidence of someone who'd made this drive before. The letter, I said suddenly, remembering. He said the truth is in the place where we said goodbye. What does that mean? It means, Owen said, pulling into a narrow alley between 2 corrugated metal buildings, that your father left you more than just a letter. He left you proof, documentation, everything he collected about the Origin program, about what they did to you, about what they're planning. It's all in a secure location. We just need to get there before they figure out where we're going. He killed the engine, and suddenly the silence was deafening. Just the tick of cooling metal and the distant sound of traffic on the highway. And then what? I asked. Say we get this evidence, this proof. What am I supposed to do with it? Go to the media? The police? The same government that's currently hunting me. Owen turned to face me, and for the first time since this morning, I saw something like sympathy in his eyes. Then you make a choice, Marcus. Your father spent his life keeping you hidden, keeping you safe. But safe means invisible. Safe means living with a target on your back that you can't see, but know is there. Safe means they always have power over you. And the alternative? The alternative is we expose them. We take everything your father collected, every piece of evidence, every classified document, and we burn the whole program to the ground. We make you too public to disappear. Too important to silence. That sounds like a great way to get killed. Probably, Owen agreed. But at least you'd die knowing you fought back. And who knows? Maybe we'd actually win. I leaned back against the headrest, closing my eyes. This morning I'd been dreaming about pancakes. Now I was sitting in a car with my secretly former spy neighbor, discussing how to take down a clandestine government program that wanted to dissect me for science. My life is insane, I muttered. Yeah, Owen said, opening his door. Welcome to the club. Now come on. We've got about an hour before they figure out we're not at any of the obvious places. Let's not waste it. I climbed out of the car, my legs unsteady, my brain still trying to process everything. Somewhere across town, federal agents were tearing apart my house, probably terrifying my neighbors, definitely ruining Mrs. Henderson's book club afternoon. Somewhere, Tara was getting calls from police, from my boss, from reporters maybe, wondering where I was, wondering what the hell had happened to her husband. And somewhere, buried in whatever mystery location my father had set up before he died, was the truth about who I really was. I wasn't sure I wanted to know, but I was pretty sure I didn't have a choice anymore. The alley smelled like rust, old oil, and broken dreams. Basically the olfactory equivalent of my current life situation. Owen was already moving toward a rusted metal door set into the side of one of the warehouses, pulling out a key that looked like it had been forged sometime during the Cold War. Which, knowing what I now knew about my father's secret life, was probably accurate. How long have you been sitting on this information? I asked, jogging to catch up with him. About my dad, about me, about all of this? 6 months, Owen said, jimmying the key into a lock that looked like it hadn't been opened since the Clinton administration. Since the day after his funeral. He left me instructions, access codes, contingency plans. Made me promise not to tell you unless absolutely necessary. And you thought this morning was absolutely necessary? The lock clicked. Owen pushed the door open, revealing a stairwell that descended into darkness that looked genuinely uninviting. I've been monitoring federal databases since your father died, watching for any activity related to the Origin program, any mention of your name in classified channels. Last night, I saw the orders come through. Elimination protocol, authorized at the highest levels. Your name was on the list, along with 7 other people who'd worked on or been tangential to the program. They weren't taking chances anymore. He flicked on a flashlight, because apparently he just carried those around now, and started down the stairs. I followed, because what else was I going to do? Stand in an alley and wait for the feds to catch up? 7 other people. I repeated, my voice echoing in the stairwell. The attack at my office. That was them eliminating everyone on the list? Everyone except you. Which is why they needed it to look like you were there. If you'd shown up to work this morning like normal, you'd be dead. They'd have made it look like you were a victim, just another casualty of a tragic workplace violence incident. But since you didn't show up, they had to make me the villain instead. I finished. Frame me for the attack, so when I mysteriously disappear or turn up dead, everyone just assumes I was the shooter who got what he deserved. Bingo. Gold star for the guy whose life is falling apart. We reached the bottom of the stairs, and Owen led me through a maze of corridors that looked like they belonged in a horror movie about abandoned industrial complexes. Pipes dripped condensation, fluorescent lights flickered weakly, and I was pretty sure I saw a rat the size of a small dog scurry past us at one point. This is your idea of a safe house? I asked, because I've seen cozier places in post-apocalyptic video games. We're not staying here, Owen said, checking his watch. This is just a waypoint. Your father set up a network of them. Places to regroup, switch vehicles, throw off pursuit. The actual safe house is about 2 hours from here, assuming we don't hit traffic or federal roadblocks. Oh good, federal roadblocks. I was worried this day wasn't stressful enough. We emerged into what looked like an underground parking garage, except instead of soccer mom SUVs and overpriced sedans, there was a single vehicle covered with a tarp. Owen pulled it off with a flourish that would have been dramatic if the car underneath wasn't a beat-up Ford pickup that looked like it had survived several wars and maybe a natural disaster or two. You've got to be kidding me, I said. It's registered to a shell company that can't be traced to either of us, and it looks forgettable. That's all we need. He tossed me the keys. You're driving. I'm driving? Why am I driving? Because I need to monitor communications, track our pursuit, and make sure we're not walking into a trap. Also, You drive like a normal person, which is exactly what we want right now. I drive like someone trained in evasive maneuvers, which attracts attention. Fair point. I caught the keys and climbed into the driver's seat, which smelled like old coffee and regret. The truck started with a cough that suggested it was as unhappy about this situation as I was, but it ran. That was something. Owen plugged a tablet into the dashboard and pulled up what looked like a police scanner on steroids. Multiple feeds, maps with moving dots, encrypted communications scrolling past faster than I could read. Jesus, is that legal? I asked. Not even a little bit. Take a left out of here and head toward the highway. I did as instructed, navigating the truck up a ramp that opened onto a side street I didn't recognize. The afternoon sun was bright and cheerful, completely at odds with the fact that my life had become a Jason Bourne movie directed by someone with a really dark sense of humor. My phone buzzed again. I risked a glance. Tara, texting now. Where are you? Police are looking for you. Marcus, what's happening? I'm scared. Please call me. My chest tightened. She was scared. Of course she was scared. Her husband had vanished, and the police were probably telling her I was dangerous, that I'd attacked my coworkers, that she shouldn't try to contact me. I need to tell her something, I said. She thinks I'm a murderer. Better she thinks that than she becomes a target. Owen said, not looking up from his tablet. They'll use her to get to you if they think she knows where you are. The less she knows, the safer she is. That's a terrible comfort. It's not meant to be comforting. It's meant to keep her alive. We merged onto the highway, joining the flow of afternoon traffic. People heading home from work, running errands, living their normal, boring, non-fugitive lives. I envied every single one of them. They're setting up checkpoints, Owen said suddenly, his eyes fixed on the tablet. 3 major exits from the city, all with federal oversight. They're looking for you specifically. They've got your photo distributed to every cop within 50 miles. Fantastic. Should I disguise myself? Grow a mustache? Start speaking with an accent? Just keep driving normally. We're 40 minutes from the first checkpoint. If we time it right and stick to back roads, we can avoid. He stopped, his expression going dark. Shit. What? What is shit? I hate when people say shit like that. They're tracking your phone. I should have thought of that earlier. He held out his hand. Give it to me. Now. I pulled my phone from my pocket, reluctantly handing it over. Owen rolled down the window and threw it out without hesitation. I watched in the rearview mirror as it bounced on the asphalt and got run over by a minivan. That had all my contacts. I protested. My photos, 3 years of playlists, and a GPS tracker that was leading them directly to us. Priorities, Marcus. Easy for you to say. You probably have your entire life backed up on some encrypted government server. Actually, yes. Of course he did. We drove in tense silence for about 10 minutes. Owen constantly monitoring his feeds, me constantly checking the rearview mirror for suspicious vehicles. Every black SUV made my heart rate spike. Every cop car made me grip the steering wheel tighter. Then Owen's tablet beeped, a sharp, urgent sound that made us both jump. What now? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. They've found the car, the one we left in the alley. They're running the registration now. It'll take them maybe 20 minutes to trace it to the warehouse, and then... He trailed off, typing rapidly on the tablet. And then they'll know we're heading away from the city. I finished. They'll expand the search perimeter, set up more checkpoints, maybe even bring in helicopters. Look at you, thinking like a fugitive already. Your father would be proud. My father would be horrified that I'm in this situation in the first place. Owen glanced up at me, something unreadable in his expression. Your father knew exactly what situation he was putting you in. He just hoped it would never come to this. That's why he spent 20 years building an exit strategy he hoped you'd never need. The weight of that settled over me. My dad, my boring, complain about taxes, watch too much cable news dad, had spent 2 decades preparing for the possibility that I'd have to run for my life. Had set up safe houses and contingency plans and recruited former intelligence analysts to watch over me, all while maintaining the facade of a normal suburban life. How many Little League games had he attended while secretly worried someone might be watching? How many family dinners had he sat through, smiling and laughing, while carrying the knowledge that his son was a target? How many nights had he lain awake, wondering if tomorrow would be the day they came for me? He should have told me, I said quietly. He should have given me a choice. Maybe, Owen agreed. But what would you have done differently? Lived in fear? Run away? Your father gave you something more valuable than knowledge, Marcus. He gave you normalcy, a chance to be happy, to fall in love, to build a life. Even if it couldn't last forever, at least you had it. Before I could respond, sirens wailed behind us. Not close, but getting closer. I checked the mirror, 2 cop cars, weaving through traffic about a quarter-mile back, lights flashing. Are they? I started. Yes, Owen said grimly. They're coming for us. Don't speed up. Don't do anything suspicious. Take the next exit. There's a shopping center. We're going to lose them in the parking lot. Lose them? Owen, I'm not a stunt driver. I can barely parallel park. Then I suggest you learn fast. Exit. Now. I swerved right, taking the exit with probably more speed than necessary. The truck's tires squealed in protest. Behind us, the cop cars followed, closing the distance. We hit the parking lot doing 45 in a 25 zone. Owen pointed. There, between those buildings. Cut through the loading dock area. That's not a road. It is now. Go. I went, taking the truck through a gap between buildings that was definitely not designed for vehicles, scraping past dumpsters and narrowly avoiding a very surprised delivery driver. We emerged on the other side into a different parking lot, this one belonging to a big box store where 100 cars sat in neat rows like metallic camouflage. Park, Owen commanded. Middle section, between 2 larger vehicles. I found a spot between an SUV and a pickup bigger than ours, killed the engine, and sat there breathing hard, my hands shaking on the wheel. Through the windshield, I could see the cop cars circling the shopping center, searching, looking for us, looking for me. How long do we wait? I whispered, as if they might hear us from 200 yards away. Until they move on. Could be 5 minutes, could be 30. And if they don't move on? Owen reached into his jacket and pulled out a handgun. Just casually produced a weapon like it was the most normal thing in the world. Then we get creative, he said. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. I stared at the gun, then at Owen, then back at the gun. You know what? I'm starting to think my neighbor being a secret agent is actually the least weird thing about today. Welcome to your new normal, Owen said, settling back to watch the cops search for us. It only gets weirder from here. We sat in that parking lot for 47 minutes. I know because I watched every single second tick by on the truck's dashboard clock like I was watching my life expectancy drain away in real time. The cop cars circled 3 times, then posted up at different exits like they were playing some kind of twisted game of Red Rover, waiting for us to make a break for it. Owen spent the entire time on his tablet, watching their communications, tracking their movements, occasionally muttering things like, "Come on, take the bait," to himself like he was coaching a sports team made up of law enforcement officers who were actively trying to arrest us. Finally, mercifully, a call came through on their radios, something about a suspected sighting 15 miles north, and they peeled out like their sirens were on fire. We waited another 5 minutes just to be sure, then Owen gave me the nod. Okay, let's move. But take it slow. Boring. Like you're just heading home from buying discount paper towels. I can be boring, I muttered, starting the truck. Boring is literally my specialty. I've been boring my whole life without even knowing I was supposed to be interesting. We eased out of the parking lot, merging back into traffic with all the excitement of a documentary about paint drying. Owen directed me through a series of back roads that probably didn't even show up on GPS, winding through industrial parks and residential areas that all looked identical. The kind of suburban sprawl where you could get lost for hours and end up exactly where you started. All right, I said after about 20 minutes of tense silence. I think I've earned the full story now. You said my dad had proof, documentation. What exactly are we talking about here? Owen glanced at me, then back at his tablet. How much do you know about genetic engineering? I know it's what they do in sci-fi movies right before everything goes horribly wrong. Not far off, actually. He pulled up a file on his tablet. I couldn't read it while driving, but I could see it was dense with text, graphs, and what looked like DNA sequences. The Origin program started in 2003, right after SARS scared the hell out of the government. The idea was simple. If we can't predict the next pandemic, can we at least create people who'd survive it? That doesn't sound inherently evil. It wasn't. At first, they started with conventional research, studying people who had natural immunities, analyzing genetic markers, trying to understand why some people never get sick while others get everything. Your name popped up in those early studies. Infant subject, remarkable immune response, worth monitoring. All very clinical, very by the book. He swiped to another file. But then around 2010, the program got folded into a classified Defense Department initiative. New leadership, new funding, new objectives. Suddenly, it wasn't just about understanding natural immunity. It was about replicating it, enhancing it, weaponizing it. Weaponizing immunity? How do you weaponize not getting sick? Think about it, Marcus. If you could create soldiers who were immune to biological weapons, you'd have an unstoppable advantage. Release a virus in enemy territory, send in your immune troops while everyone else is dying. It's genocide with plausible deniability. My stomach turned. That's monstrous. That's war. Or at least, that's how some people think about war. He closed that file, opened another. The problem was, they couldn't do it. Tried for years, threw billions at it, recruited the best geneticists in the world. They could enhance immune systems marginally, but nothing close to what they needed. Nothing close to what you had naturally. So they came back to me. They came back to all their early subjects. Tracked them down, studied them, tried to figure out what made you different. Most of the subjects were dead ends. Their immune systems were good, but not exceptional. Nothing that couldn't be explained by genetics and luck. But you. He looked at me, and there was something like awe in his expression. You were different. Your cellular regeneration rate, your antibody production, your resistance to literally everything they exposed you to. You weren't just healthy, Marcus. You were evolutionarily advanced. I'm not a mutant, I said, but my voice sounded uncertain even to my own ears. No, you're not. That's what makes you so valuable. You're not a lab creation. You're not the result of gene therapy or experimental drugs. You're natural. You're proof that human immunity can evolve to these levels on its own, given the right genetic circumstances. You're the answer they've been searching for, wrapped up in a boring financial consultant who likes pancakes. Hey, everyone likes pancakes. That's not a personality flaw. Owen actually smiled at that, brief and fleeting. Your father figured this out around 2015. He'd been monitoring the program peripherally, watching for any mention of you, ready to intervene if necessary. But when he saw how interested they were getting, how they were planning to bring you in for voluntary testing that probably would have ended with you in a lab somewhere being studied like a prize specimen, he made his move. What did he do? He stole everything. Every file, every test result, every internal memo about the Origin program. Took him 3 years to compile it all without getting caught. He had access through his consulting work, though I suspect he wasn't exactly authorized to be digging through classified databases. When he was done, he had enough evidence to expose the entire program. Proof of illegal human experimentation, unauthorized use of civilian genetic material, falsified reports to congressional oversight committees, all of it. I took a turn Owen indicated, my mind reeling. Why didn't he just release it then? Why keep it hidden? Because releasing it would have put you directly in the spotlight. You'd have become the most famous test subject in the world. Every government, every biotech company, every terrorist organization would have wanted a piece of you. Your father couldn't protect you from that kind of attention, so he kept the evidence hidden, used it as insurance instead, made sure the right people knew he had it, that if anything happened to him or you, it would all go public automatically. Mutually assured destruction, I said quietly. Exactly. It worked for a while. They backed off, left you alone, focused on other avenues of research. But then your father had his stroke, and the insurance policy died with him. Or at least, they thought it did. But it didn't. No, because your father was paranoid and thorough and smart enough to build in redundancies. He gave me access codes, locations, instructions, made me promise to complete his work if necessary, to either keep you hidden forever or expose the whole thing and let the chips fall where they may. We were leaving the suburbs behind now, heading into genuinely rural territory, farms and fields, and the kind of wide-open spaces where you could hide a body and no one would find it for years. Comforting thought. Where exactly are we going? I asked. A place your father bought under a shell corporation 15 years ago. Off the grid, no records, completely untraceable. He called it the vault. It's where he stored everything. All the evidence, all the documentation, and something else too. What else? Owen hesitated, which immediately made my anxiety spike. When your former spy neighbor hesitates, It's never followed by good news. Samples, he said finally. Your father collected samples over the years. Blood work, tissue cultures, genetic material. Everything they'd need to actually replicate your immunity if they got their hands on it. He couldn't risk destroying them. They were part of the evidence, proof of what they'd done, but he couldn't let them fall into the wrong hands either. So there's a vault somewhere with my DNA in it. Among other things, yes. And we're going there. We are. To either hide forever or blow the whistle on a massive government conspiracy. That's the general plan. I laughed because what else could I do? You know what the really messed up part is? This morning, my biggest concern was whether I had enough milk for cereal. Now I'm driving a fugitive truck to a secret vault to decide whether to spend the rest of my life in hiding or become the poster child for illegal human experimentation. Character development is wild. Look at it this way, Owen said, pulling up a map on his tablet that showed we were about 30 minutes from our destination. At least your life isn't boring anymore. I liked boring. Boring was underrated. Boring meant I got to sleep in my own bed and kiss my wife and worry about normal things like mortgage payments and whether I needed an oil change. Well, good news. You definitely don't need to worry about that oil change anymore. Not helpful, Owen. He zoomed in on the map, showing a small cluster of buildings surrounded by forest about 20 miles ahead. That's the vault. Remote location, minimal traffic, no nearby surveillance. Your father chose well. Did he spend a lot of time there? I don't know. He gave me the location and the access codes, but I've never actually been there. This'll be a first for both of us. Great. So we're going to a secret location that neither of us has visited before, that may or may not still be secure, to access materials that could either save my life or get me killed. This is fine. Everything is fine. Owen looked at me, and for the first time since this insane day began, I saw something like sympathy in his expression. For what it's worth, Marcus, I'm sorry. Sorry your father put you in this position. Sorry you had to find out this way. Sorry that you can't just go home and pretend this isn't happening. But I can't pretend it's not happening. No, you can't. The moment they decided to eliminate everyone connected to the Origin program, your old life ended. Even if we could somehow prove your innocence about the attack, even if you could clear your name, they'd never stop hunting you. You're too valuable. Too important to their research. As long as you're walking around with that immune system, you're a target. The forest was thickening around us now, the road narrowing to barely more than a dirt path. Trees pressed in from both sides, blocking out the afternoon sun and casting everything in shadow. So what you're saying is, my choices are hide forever or go nuclear. Pretty much. No middle ground. No, let's negotiate a peaceful settlement where everyone walks away happy. This isn't that kind of story, Marcus. I sighed, gripping the steering wheel tighter as the truck bounced over a pothole that probably had its own zip code. Yeah, I kind of figured. Ahead, through the trees, I could just make out a structure, concrete and steel, half buried in the hillside, looking less like a vault and more like a bunker designed to survive nuclear war. There, Owen said, pointing. That's it. I pulled the truck to a stop about 50 yards away, staring at the building that contained all the answers I wasn't sure I wanted. Somewhere in there was proof of who I really was, what I really was, and the decision that would determine the rest of my life, however long that turned out to be. Ready? Owen asked. Absolutely not. Good answer. Let's go anyway. The bunker looked like something out of a Cold War fever dream. All concrete angles and reinforced steel, half swallowed by the hillside like the earth had tried to digest it and given up halfway through. Moss covered most of the exterior, and vines crawled up the sides with the kind of aggressive determination that suggested they'd been working on this takeover for years. If my father had been trying to hide something, he'd definitely succeeded. You could drive past this thing 100 times and never notice it was there. Owen approached the entrance first, which was basically just a heavy steel door set into the concrete with a keypad next to it that looked older than my marriage. He pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket, actual paper, folded and worn, and started entering a code that was apparently long enough to launch nuclear missiles. Your father really didn't believe in keeping things simple, did he? I muttered, watching him punch in what had to be the 20th digit. He believed in keeping things secure. There's a difference. Owen hit one final button, and something inside the door clunked heavily. Mechanical sounds echoed from within. Gears turning, locks disengaging, The kind of sounds that made you think about bank vaults and maximum security prisons. Also, there's a secondary authentication. Of course there is. He gestured to a panel on the wall that slid open, revealing what looked like a hand scanner. Biometric lock. Only opens for specific genetic markers. I stared at it. Let me guess, my genetic markers. Bingo. Your father's handprint could open it too, but since he's not here. Owen stepped back, giving me room. It's all you, Marcus. I approached the scanner like it might bite me, which, given how today was going, wasn't entirely outside the realm of possibility. What if it doesn't work? What if my hand is too sweaty, or I've somehow fundamentally changed my genetic structure since the last time I touched a hand scanner? Which, for the record, has never happened because I'm not usually breaking into secret government bunkers. Then we find another way in. But it'll work. Try it. I placed my hand on the scanner, which was cold and slightly dusty. A blue light swept across my palm, and for a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the scanner beeped, the light turned green, and the door hissed open with the kind of dramatic flair that would have made my father proud if he wasn't, dead and partially responsible for this entire nightmare. The interior was dark, but as soon as I stepped inside, motion sensors triggered and fluorescent lights flickered to life one by one, illuminating a corridor that stretched back into the hillside. The walls were lined with more steel reinforcement, and the air had that recycled quality of spaces that weren't meant to be opened often. Wow, I said, my voice echoing. Dad really went all out. This is like a doomsday prepper's wet dream. Owen followed me in, pulling the door closed behind us with a solid thunk that made me feel instantly claustrophobic. Your father understood the stakes. When you're keeping secrets from people with unlimited resources and no oversight, you don't cut corners. We walked down the corridor, passing rooms that appeared to be storage areas, shelves lined with supplies, boxes of files, equipment I couldn't identify. Everything was meticulously organized, labeled in my father's handwriting with codes and dates. It was surreal seeing evidence of this whole secret life he'd led, this paranoid preparation for a disaster he'd hoped would never come. How long was he working on this? I asked, running my hand along a shelf of storage containers. At least 10 years, maybe longer. He brought things here gradually, never enough at once to attract attention. A few boxes here, some equipment there. Built it up piece by piece until he had everything he needed. The corridor opened into a larger room that was clearly the main space. Concrete floor, reinforced walls, and in the center, a series of workstations with computers that looked sophisticated enough to run a small space program. But what really caught my attention was the wall to my left. It was covered in photographs, documents, news clippings, all connected by red string like something out of a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Except this wasn't a theory. This was real. I approached the wall slowly, taking in the details. Photos of me at various ages, baby pictures, school photos, my college graduation, my wedding day. Jesus, my wedding day. Had my father been thinking about all this while he walked me down the aisle? Had he been wondering if I'd ever get to grow old with Tara, or if someday men in suits would come for me? Mixed in with my photos were documents, official-looking papers with government seals, medical reports, genetic analyses, and faces I didn't recognize, labeled with names and dates and statuses. Some had red X's through them. Those were the dead ones, I realized with a sick feeling. The other test subjects. The ones who hadn't survived whatever the program had done to them. Marcus, Owen said quietly from behind me. We should focus. We don't have unlimited time here. He was right, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the wall. There was a document pinned near the center, titled Project Origin, Genesis Protocol Overview. I pulled it down, scanning the text. It was dense, full of medical jargon and bureaucratic doublespeak, but the core message was clear enough. They'd identified 47 subjects over 15 years with exceptional immunological characteristics. Most showed only marginal advantages. 12 showed significant promise. 5 were selected for enhanced observation and potential acquisition. I was subject 7B. My designation was right there, printed in clinical black and white. Next to it was my full medical history, genetic profile, and a section labeled Threat Assessment that made my blood run cold. High-value asset. Natural occurrence of target immunological markers. Non-cooperative parent poses significant security risk. Recommend immediate acquisition upon parent's removal. Authorization pending. They were planning this, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Before my dad died, they were already planning to take me. Owen stepped closer, reading over my shoulder. That's dated 3 weeks before his stroke. It wasn't a stroke. You said so yourself. They killed him because he was in the way. Yes. I looked at the other names on the wall, the ones with red X's. The attack this morning. Those were the other high-value subjects. Some of them. Others were researchers, administrators, people who knew too much and were considered liabilities. They cleaned house, Marcus. Wiped the slate clean so they could start fresh without any loose ends. Except me. Except you. You're the one loose, and they couldn't tie up because your father gave you an early warning system. Owen moved to one of the computers, booting it up. Now we need to decide what to do about it. I turned away from the wall, from the photos and documents and evidence of my father's paranoia that turned out to be completely justified. You said there were 2 options. Hide or expose. Walk me through both. Owen's fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing up files and programs. Option 1. We take everything here, all the evidence, all the samples, and we disappear. I have contacts who can create new identities, get us out of the country, set us up somewhere remote. You'd never be Marcus Reed again, but you'd be alive. You could build a new life, somewhere they'd never think to look. And Tara? He didn't answer immediately. She'd have to believe you were dead. Or guilty. Or both. You couldn't contact her, couldn't let her know the truth. It would put her at risk. My chest tightened. So I just abandoned her. Let her think her husband was a murderer who died on the run. It would hurt her, but it would keep her safe. They have no reason to hurt her if they think you're gone. I turned to the wall again, looking at my wedding photo. Tara in her dress, smiling like the world was perfect, like we had our whole lives ahead of us. What's option 2? Owen pulled up a new screen. It looked like some kind of upload interface, connected to multiple servers. Option 2. We release everything. Every document, every file, every piece of evidence your father collected. We send it to journalists, politicians, watchdog organizations, anyone who'll listen. We make the Origin program so public that they can't make you disappear without everyone knowing exactly why. That sounds good. What's the catch? The catch is that you become the most famous test subject in the world. Your face will be everywhere. Your genetic profile will be analyzed by every scientist on the planet. You'll never have privacy again. Never have a normal life. And there's no guarantee it'll work. Powerful people have gotten away with worse. You might just become a target with better PR. I laughed bitterly. So my choices are either fake my death and abandon everyone I love, or become a public freak show and maybe die anyway. I did say there was no good option. You weren't kidding. I walked to one of the workstations, looking at the screens Owen had pulled up. On one, I could see the upload interface, one button press away from sending everything to the world. On another, there were files about identity creation, escape routes, safe houses scattered across 3 continents. Behind me, on that wall, was my entire life documented in paranoid detail. My father's life's work, dedicated to keeping me safe from a threat I didn't even know existed. What would he want me to do? I asked quietly. My dad. What would he choose? Owen was silent for a moment. Honestly, I think he'd want you to hide. He spent 20 years trying to keep you invisible. Going public would undo everything he worked for. But he also left me all this evidence. All this proof. If he just wanted me to hide, why not destroy it? Why keep it at all? Insurance. Leverage. A final fuck you to the people who killed him. Owen turned to face me. But also, maybe, because he knew you might want a different choice than the one he made. He lived his life in secret, protecting you from the shadows. Maybe he wanted to give you the option to fight back, to do what he couldn't. I thought about my father, not the secret agent version, but the regular dad version. The guy who taught me to ride a bike and helped with my math homework and fell asleep during every movie we watched together. The guy who hugged me at my wedding and said he was proud of me, his voice thick with emotion I didn't understand at the time. Had he been thinking about all of this? Had he been wondering if I'd ever forgive him for the secrets, for the lies, for pulling me into this world without my consent? I can't abandon Tara, I said finally. I can't let her spend the rest of her life thinking I was a monster. She deserves the truth. Even if the truth puts her in danger? Even then, she's my wife, Owen. She signed up for in sickness and in health. Not, until my secret government conspiracy gets too complicated. Owen nodded slowly. Okay, so we go public. We go nuclear, I corrected. We don't just release the files. We make sure they can't be ignored, can't be swept under the rug. We send them everywhere, to everyone, all at once. We make it so big that even the government can't spin their way out of it. That's a declaration of war, Marcus, against very powerful people. Yeah, well, I moved to the computer, my hand hovering over the keyboard. They started it when they killed my father. I'm just finishing it. Owen stepped up beside me, pulling up additional windows, queuing files for upload. Your father would have been proud. Terrified, probably, but proud. Let's hope I live long enough to feel good about that. Together, we started the process. Files uploaded to secure servers, encrypted packages sent to journalists, automated releases scheduled across multiple time zones. Within an hour, everything my father had collected, every secret, every crime, every piece of evidence about the Origin program, would be live and accessible to the entire world. I watched the progress bar climb, thinking about Tara, about my father, about the life I'd had this morning that now felt like it belonged to someone else. No going back now, Owen said as the final files uploaded. No, I agreed. No going back. The computer beeped. Upload complete. And just like that, everything changed. The upload took 47 minutes and felt like 47 years. We stood there watching progress bars creep across the screen with agonizing slowness, both of us knowing that each percentage point was another nail in the coffin of my old life. When it finally hit 100%, the computer made a cheerful little ding sound that seemed wildly inappropriate for the moment. It's done, Owen said, leaning back from the keyboard. Files are dispersed across 23 different servers in 14 countries. Copies sent to the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, BBC, Reuters, and about 40 other news organizations. Also went to congressional oversight committees, human rights organizations, and a few independent journalists known for handling classified leaks. So basically everyone, he confirmed. By morning, this is going to be the biggest story in the world. The government's going to have a lot of explaining to do. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated, something. Instead, I just felt exhausted and slightly nauseous, like I'd just jumped off a cliff and was waiting to see if I'd grow wings or just hit the ground really hard. How long before they know it was us? I asked. Owen checked his tablet, which was still monitoring various communications channels. They probably already know. The upload would have triggered alarms at multiple agencies. They'll be triangulating the source, mobilizing response teams, trying to contain the damage. I'd give us maybe 2 hours before they figure out we were here. 2 hours. That's not a lot of time. No, it's not. We should. He stopped, his eyes catching on something across the room. Wait, what's that? I followed his gaze to a corner of the vault I hadn't paid much attention to before. There was a desk there, old, wooden, completely at odds with all the modern technology surrounding it. And on the desk, illuminated by the fluorescent lights, was a leather journal with my father's initials embossed on the cover. I walked over to it like I was approaching a sacred artifact, my heart hammering in my chest. This wasn't like the clinical documents on the wall or the sterile files on the computer. This was personal. This was my dad's handwriting, my dad's thoughts, my dad's actual voice preserved in ink and paper. I picked up the journal, feeling the weight of it. The leather was worn smooth from handling, the pages dog-eared and marked. This was something he'd used regularly, something he'd poured himself into. Marcus, Owen said softly, we don't have much time. I know. Just give me a minute. I opened the journal to the first page. The date was from 15 years ago, right after they'd first tried to bring me in for testing. My father's handwriting stared back at me, neat and precise. They came for Marcus today. 3 men in suits, showing credentials that looked legitimate but felt wrong. Said they wanted him for a routine follow-up study about immune responses in young adults. Routine. As if anything about this has ever been routine. I sent them away, told them Marcus was traveling, unavailable, would contact them when he returned. They didn't believe me, but they left. For now, I know they'll be back. They always come back. I'm writing this because I need to remember why I'm doing this. Why I'm lying to my son, keeping secrets from my wife, building escape plans for a disaster I pray never comes. I need to remember that this is about love, about protection, About giving Marcus a chance at a life I never had. A life without shadows, without fear, without looking over your shoulder every moment wondering if today's the day they come for you. But I'm also writing this because if I'm gone, if they finally decide I'm too much of a liability and they make me disappear, I need Marcus to understand. To know that none of this was his fault. That he didn't ask to be born with an immune system that defied explanation. That he doesn't owe anyone access to his body, his blood, his genetic code. Marcus, if you're reading this, it means I failed to protect you. I'm sorry. I tried so hard, for so long. But sometimes trying isn't enough. Sometimes the monsters win. But here's what I need you to know. You are not what they say you are. You're not a test subject, not an asset, not a biological curiosity. You're my son. You're a good man who deserves to live his life on his own terms. And whatever you decide to do with the information in this vault, whether you run or fight, hide or expose, I support you. I'm proud of you. I always have been. Just remember, you don't owe them anything. Your existence is not consent. Your DNA is yours alone. I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't say this to your face. Dad, my vision blurred. I blinked hard, trying to clear it, but tears were already running down my face. Actual tears, because apparently today hadn't been emotionally devastating enough already. He knew. I said, my voice cracking. He knew they'd kill him. He knew I'd end up here reading this. Owen stood beside me, silent. What could he say? What do you say to someone reading their dead father's final message while running for their life from the organization that killed him? I flipped through more pages, scanning entries. My father had documented everything. Every suspicious approach, every close call, every time he'd had to redirect attention away from me. There were contingency plans sketched out, safe houses listed, escape routes detailed. He'd spent years preparing for this moment. But mixed in with the paranoia and planning were normal entries too. Notes about my birthday parties, pride in my college acceptance, joy at my wedding. My father had been living two lives simultaneously. The protective operative building a fortress around his son, and the regular dad who just wanted to see his kid be happy. Near the end of the journal, there was an entry from the week before he died. They gave me an ultimatum today. Bring Marcus involuntarily for consultation or face consequences. The man delivering the message, Morrison, cold eyes, government haircut, made it very clear what those consequences would be. Not just for me. For Sarah. For Marcus. For anyone who knew anything. I told him no. Told him to go to hell. Actually, which probably wasn't diplomatic, but felt good in the moment. I know what comes next. I've known for a while now. They'll make it look natural, a stroke, a heart attack, something plausible for a man my age with my stress levels. Sarah will grieve. Marcus will blame himself for not visiting more often, and life will go on. Except it won't, because they'll come for Marcus next. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. That's why I've done what I've done. Set everything in motion. Given Owen the codes, the locations, the instructions. When they come for Marcus, and they will come, he'll have options. He'll have a choice. That's all I can give him now. Choices. I hope he forgives me. For the secrets. For the lies. For pulling him into a war he didn't choose. But more than that, I hope he fights. Not because I need him to finish what I started, but because I know him. He has his mother's sense of justice, her inability to let injustice stand. He won't want to hide. He'll want to burn it all down. Good. Let him. Let him be the fire I couldn't be. Marcus, you're reading this after I'm gone. You've found the vault. You've seen the evidence. And now you're standing at a crossroads, wondering what kind of man you want to be. Here's what I'll tell you. Be the man who fights back. Be the man who looks at powerful people doing terrible things and says no more. Be the man who chooses truth over safety, justice over comfort. But also, and this is important, be the man who lives, who loves, who finds joy in the small things despite everything. Don't let them take that from you. Don't let them turn you into someone who only exists to fight. Your mother and I raised you to be happy. Don't forget that in the war that's coming. I'm proud of you, son. Whatever you choose. Dad. P.S. There's a control terminal in the back room. 2 protocols. You'll figure it out. You always were smarter than you gave yourself credit for. I closed the journal carefully, reverently, holding it against my chest like it could somehow transmit one last hug from my father. Owen was watching me, his expression unreadable. He wanted me to fight, I said. All that preparation, All those escape plans, but he wanted me to fight. He wanted you to choose, Owen corrected. Fight or flight, both were acceptable, as long as it was your choice. I looked around the vault, at the evidence we'd just unleashed on the world, at the wall of conspiracy that was my life, at the journal full of my father's love and fear and hope. He mentioned a control terminal. A back room. Owen checked his tablet again. We've got maybe 90 minutes before they converge on this location. But yeah, let's check it out. The back room was small, barely more than a closet. But it contained exactly what my father's journal had mentioned. A control terminal, sophisticated and modern, with two large buttons clearly labeled. The first button was marked Acquire Protocol with a description beneath. Submit to voluntary testing. Preserve samples. Negotiate terms. Live under observation. The second button was marked Reveal Protocol with its own description. Initiate automated evidence dispersal. Full exposure. No return. We already released the evidence, I said, confused. Why would there be a separate protocol? Owen leaned closer, reading additional text on the screen. This is different. The files we uploaded were documentation. Proof of what they did, evidence of crimes. But this. He pointed to a detailed manifest. This releases your actual genetic data, your medical records, your biological information. It makes you completely transparent. No secrets left. Why would I want to do that? Because it removes the mystery. Right now, you're valuable because you're unique, unexplained. If every scientist in the world has access to your genetic code, you stop being a secret weapon and start being just information. Interesting, sure, but not worth killing over. You can't put the genie back in the bottle if everyone already has a copy of it. I stared at the button. And the first option? The first option is surrender. You go to them, let them study you, probably spend the rest of your life as a test subject. But alive, protected, even. Just not free. My phone, Owen's spare phone, since mine was currently scattered across a highway somewhere, buzzed. A news alert. The story was breaking. Major news outlets were starting to report on massive classified document leak regarding a legal human experimentation program. It was happening. The world was learning the truth. I need to choose now, don't I? I said, yes. I thought about my father, writing in his journal late at night, planning for a future he wouldn't live to see. I thought about Tara, probably being questioned by federal agents right now, wondering what happened to her husband. I thought about all the other subjects, the ones with red X's through their names, who didn't get a choice. And I thought about what kind of man I wanted to be. My hand moved toward the buttons. Marcus, Owen said, whatever you choose, I'm with you. I nodded, taking a breath. And I pressed a button. I pressed Reveal Protocol, because apparently I'm a sucker for chaos and terrible life decisions. The screen exploded with activity, progress bars, file transfers, data streams racing across monitors faster than my ability to process what I'd just done. My genetic code, my medical history, every biological secret I'd ever had, uploading to servers worldwide. No takebacks, no undo button. Just me, Marcus Reed, becoming the world's most transparent human being. Owen grinned, actually grinned. You just changed history. Cool. Can I change my credit score too while I'm at it? Then alarms wailed. Not the polite, please evacuate kind. The you're about to die kind. Helicopters thundered above, shaking dust from the concrete ceiling. Owen grabbed my arm. Escape tunnel. Now, we sprinted down a corridor I hadn't noticed before, my father's journal clutched against my chest. Behind us, the bunker groaned. Explosives? Probably, because of course they'd rather destroy everything than let us escape. Next time, warn me before I commit treason. I yelled. There won't be a next time. Owen shouted back. The tunnel exit appeared ahead. Daylight, freedom, survival. Maybe. By the time the world caught up, every major news outlet was losing its collective mind. Secret genetic project exposed. Government implicated in BIO program. Marcus Reed, victim or whistleblower? I was officially missing, which was fine. No meetings, no taxes, no explaining to HR why I'd skipped work to become America's most wanted genetic anomaly. Tara's texts flooded Owen's spare phone. Where are you? CNN says you're dead. Marcus, please, I need to know you're alive. I replied, kind of alive. Long story. Love you. Trust me. Her response came 3 minutes later. I saw the news. I know the truth. Come home when you can. I'll be waiting. My wife. Believing in me even when the entire federal government said I was a terrorist. That's love, folks. The leaked documents did their job. Congressional hearings were announced within 48 hours. The Origin program's leadership went into hiding. Morrison, the guy who'd surrounded my house, got arrested trying to destroy evidence. Poetic justice tastes pretty good, turns out. Owen and I ended up in a small town nobody's heard of, with new names and a shared understanding that boring is actually pretty great. I work remotely now, different company, different identity, same mediocre Excel skills. My immune system? Still exceptional. But now every scientist on Earth has the data. I'm not special anymore, just interesting. And interesting doesn't get you killed. Sometimes at night, I read my father's journal. His handwriting reminds me that protection looks different for everyone. He chose shadows. I chose sunlight. And if you ever hear a knock at 5 a.m., take my advice, answer it. Sometimes your weird neighbor is trying to save your life. Sometimes the apocalypse comes with a warning. Sometimes boring is exactly what you need it to be.